Welcome to Professor Game Podcast, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who brings the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting the students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I teach and work at IE Business School in Madrid, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Want to know more? Go to professorgame.com/subscribe, start on our email list, and ask me anything. Hello, Engagers. Welcome once again to another episode of the Professor Game Podcast. And today we have Ambikesh with us. But before we kick off, Ambikesh, are you prepared to engage?
Absolutely.
Let's do this, Ambikesh, because Ambikesh is the co-founder of a consulting firm based out of India called M.A.D. Methods, so M.A.D. Methods. He's a serial entrepreneur and has founded organizations in services and product spaces. He has consulted with companies in the US and in many APAC countries, so APAC. Ambikesh is also a treasure of experience in the user experience and client management. And in recent years, he has been involved in the product and service design projects, which lead him to the world of gamification and subsequently, of course, to game thinking. And he became the first certified game thinking practitioner and coach from India and has worked on some great initiatives in UI and UX design. Ambikesh, is there anything else that we are missing from that intro?
No, nothing else. I guess you covered it pretty well, Rob. Thank you so much for the glorified introduction, man.
There you go. So, Ambikesh, we'd like to know, because there's always all of these interesting things going on, and that sometimes also gives us a clue of what you're doing, and sometimes even gives us some ideas, some strategies that we can take. So what does being Ambikesh today look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing these days?
Right, that's a big one, Rob. But if I would try and answer that in as briefly as possible. What I find myself doing these days is being very intrigued and interested in methods. In fact, hence the name M.A.D. Methods, trying to bring some method to the madness that a lot of businesses face on a daily basis. And of course, beginning with my education with Amy Jo Kim and the space of game thinking, that sort of gave me an understanding of how methods, can bring a lot of structure to the way we think, the way we do things, and the way we achieve the results that we want. And so I've sort of extended that forward and gone into other spaces like marketing, sales, HR, and all of these spaces have, their own unique methods that bring some sanity into a lot of crazy stuff that organizations are trying to do today. So that's my mission in a nutshell, trying to bring some method to a lot of these madnesses that people face.
So you're being threatened constantly by the madness that we have in today's business world, and you're bringing that order through methods. That makes a lot of sense. When we find something that works, there is no reason that we should not repeat that if we have a similar situation. And talking about situations and talking about methods and madness, because we always like to learn a lot from our guests. And one of the best ways to do so is to learn from their difficulties, from their failures. And Ambikesh, is there a situation that you can tell us of your favorite fail or first attempt in learning that you maybe would say, again, your favorite fail, your favorite failure moment, where we can, of course, be there with you? We want to be in that story. We want to learn from your experience as well. We want to be at the ground level.
Absolutely. I love to talk about my failures, Rob, because I truly believe that you only learn when you fail. When you succeed, you celebrate it and move on. But it's only when you fail that, you sort of relook at what you did and how you could have done things differently. So talking about one such experience, one big experience in my life has been, a few years ago, I was establishing the India business of a foreign company who were in the space of employee engagement and gamification. In fact, that was my introduction to the word gamification, so to say. And it was a wonderful product. It is a wonderful product. And, we tried to bring it to India and tried to sort of fit the product to the problem. And I think that was one of our biggest mistakes. I think, we were not very successful with it solely because I think we were trying to fit the product to the problem, whereas it should be the other way around. You need to figure out what the problem is and then sort of look or, tweak the solution accordingly. And employee engagement is, again, a very tricky space, especially in a place like India, where, we have such a diversified crowd and employee base and people space. Trying to find a standardized solution in this space is very difficult. Sort of one size fits all solutions don't generally work in a country like India. we love to we love to have custom made solutions for ourselves, and especially for something like employee engagement, it means different things to different people and different organizations because it's heavily dependent on the culture of the organization. So I think that was a huge challenge which we were unfortunately not able to overcome as we would have wanted to. So yeah, but I definitely had a major learning curve there. I learned a lot about solutioning, about client engagement, of course, in a country like India, and also learned a lot about the people space in general and how it is perceived in India. So wonderful lessons in those year or so. Yeah.
It sounds like one of the things that you were mentioning, especially at the start, was something that I heard Andrzej Marchewski coin as solutioneering. So a solution for a problem, right?
Absolutely.
That's something that happens a lot, especially when we're doing the exciting things, when we're working in the game thinking, gamification, game-based solutions space, because you do things that are exciting, right?
Yeah,
you do things that are engaging. You get engaged with creating the solution itself. But then if you didn't think about what that solution was solving, then you get into a difficult space. So I would highlight that one with a big highlighting marker.
Right.
The solutioneering of your situation, right?
Solutioneering, that's a good word.
So engineering for solutions, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ambikesh, that was a fantastic story. I think there is a lot to say about thinking about the problems, and sort of in the startup world, they talk about a lot about falling in love with a problem and not with a solution.
True.
So I think there is a lot to say about that, and I think your story is a very good testament to that situation and a very good lesson as well. But talking about lessons, of course, you've had many, you've learned from them, and you've had not only these first attempts in learning, but you've also had a lot of success, right? So we want to go to one of those situations. Like Ambikesh, you set out to do something, to achieve something. And again, maybe the first try or the second or the 10th try, it doesn't matter which one it was, it actually arrived at what you wanted to get to. And it was what you would call a success. Can you tell us one of those stories? We want to be there with you, see some of the success factors maybe. What did you do to get there?
Sure. No, learning for me is a continuous process, Rob, as is, I know, for you too. And learning about new businesses, learning about new challenges and how to solve them is kind of become the passion today with me. And so, yeah, one of the initial, I would say, successes that I had was there's this company in India called Travel Triangle. They're still around. Of course, COVID was a very hard time for them because travel was completely shut down for several months in India. But I'm talking about pre-COVID. I worked on a project with them. And this was, so they are a platform which connects online travelers with offline travel agencies. And they have a lot of, these small travel agencies spread across the country and even some abroad that they work with. And they all use their proprietary platform. And this platform is kind of like, a CRM for all these travel agencies. So it gives them access to a lot of leads, fresh leads coming in. And at the same time, it also provides all the process engine that is required to, convert a lead, facilitate the lead, the interaction, everything. All of that happens on the Travel Triangle platform. So it's a wonderful organization which has been around for about 7 odd years now. and they've done a great job, been very successful. So I worked with them, and our focus was, they'd done a lot of work on the customer side of this marketplace, but the travel agents themselves, there hadn't been much which was done to improve their experience in the last few years. So this project specifically was focusing on improving the user experience and the interface for the travel agencies. And in fact, I worked with Jackson, who I know has been one of your previous guests.
Yes, indeed.
So Jackson and I had a wonderful time working on this project together, and it was a great experience. And we were able to, we used the game thinking process, and, we found our super fans. We found a lot of these travel agencies who were, all excited to work with us and co-create the experience that we were trying to design for them. So, and there was these wonderful nuggets of information that we found. I would like to share one of the instances which, when we spoke to all of these travel agencies, we found this recurring pattern that they used to use WhatsApp. It's a very, popular application in India, and I'm sure a lot of countries across the world. And it's in the news right now for all of the wrong reasons, but otherwise, of course, it's become become kind of a habit for Indians in general. So everybody uses WhatsApp, and rightly so. The same was happening at Travel Triangle also. All of these travel agencies were interacting with their clients using WhatsApp a lot, and after receiving the initial lead from the Travel Triangle platform, they used to shift the conversation to WhatsApp and then just come back for the final closure to the Travel Triangle platform. So what we suggested and what the Travel Triangle platform and the company did, they integrated their solution, their platform with WhatsApp. And subsequently, they were able to capture a lot of information which was otherwise, being lost and going through WhatsApp. And at the same time, it made the life of the travel agencies also very easy because, now they were just synced with WhatsApp. All their invoices, their quotes and everything could directly be sent through WhatsApp using just a click. So they were very happy. And all in all, it was a great outcome. And, of course, the other larger things that we did was create like a reward points program for them and all that. But I think this was something which they, all the agencies really appreciated, to the point where I know later on, for some reasons, they had to shut it off for a month or so. And everybody was up in arms. So when are you bringing this back? We want this. So, these are things which, and I was told later that these are things which, through their own interactions, the company, the team already knew about. But, they, through this exercise, they actually realized the importance of it and, how much the audience wanted it. So I think that came into perspective with this exercise. And it was a great success.
Absolutely. It sounds like it. It looks like it. So let's absolutely back that one up. And I would say that one of the key lessons I would bring out is definitely using, a method, a methodology like game thinking. In that case, you identified things that maybe were already kind of known, but you doubled down on it and realized how you were able to integrate these things better. You wouldn't have found that out if you hadn't had a method to do this as well. Is there any other key lesson you'd like to draw from that, Ambikesh, before we move on?
Now that, and I think the other big response and feedback I received at the end of the project from the Travel Triangle team was of course they've been a tech team themselves, so they do a lot of product development and they use their own methodologies and processes. But one thing which I think we introduced, and I think they would have loved to carry it forward also, was rapid prototyping. That was something which they really loved. Just creating rough prototypes of things that you want to create, designs that you want to do, and share it with your super fans, that small cohort of initial, adopters, and get their feedback on it. And once you are sure and validated, then go ahead and spend your time and effort in actually developing it. So, and I know I was told that, that saved them a lot of time and effort, of course. And, some things which earlier on their development sprints used to last for say a month or so, which were reduced to just a few weeks. So I think that was an incredible new learning and change for them also, which they really liked.
Yeah, that's the argument that you probably heard before engagers, and I'm sure you have, Ambikesh, of I don't have time for prototyping. It has
Right.
to be done fast and quick. It's like, well, but do you have time for absolute and abject failure once you develop something that no
Right.
one needs?
Right.
Ah,
Exactly. Right. And I think it's obviously this theory is popularized by big organizations like Facebook and,
yeah.
make things and, break things fast and all those things. But not every organization can afford to do that, So
It's a hard pill to swallow as well, Ambikesh.
exactly,
And I was
exactly.
curious about that. Did you have to sell it to them? Were they convinced easily? I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper onto that one, because I know that's a tough one many times.
Right, right. No, I think the decision makers, actually, before the project began, we spoke and we started the conversation on the subject of gamification, actually. So they were a little convinced that, the gamification is something which can move their needle in the right direction. That they were convinced of. And the smart, I give them a lot of credit. The decision makers here also realized that they needed some kind of a method and a process and a template to do this the right way. They did some experiments by creating some reward points and reward programs for the travel agencies, and they could see the needle move. But they were smart enough to understand that you can't just be doing hit and try like this and try and get to a solution. So I give them a lot of credit that they were open to these, to learning new processes and ideas, and that's what we did. And they really loved it at the end of it.
Dream client, I'm sure.
Dream client, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it.
People who are looking forward to what you have to tell them, and are very willing to and open to experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure it's not always been the case, but
Very hard to
it's
find.
always nice.
Yeah.
And Mikesh, when you're faced with a client comes in and says we want to achieve this, I'm sure you have some sort of method. It probably is related or is actually exactly game thinking with Amy Jo. But what process do you follow? Client comes in and says something like, what do you do? How do you go about things? How do you come up with ideas? We want to be there, sort of understand as much as we can, of course. How does that work for you in 5 minutes or so?
Right. No, yes, you're right. Of course, I draw a lot of inspiration from game thinking because I think it's a beautiful methodology that Amy has created. So yes, I'm totally sort of convinced about, and I've seen it in action, so I'm convinced about its efficacy. So I do draw from that. Few things that I sort of add along is, again, any client who's trying to do anything and bring about a big change. One thing that you need to drill upon and drive and go deeper with and understand is the why. Why you are doing something. Why are you wanting to bring about this change? I think that why is very important for me to understand so that I'm able to help them achieve the desired results in the end. Because if that is not clear, of course a lot of clients begin with a certain idea. Okay, I want you to execute this. I want you to create a website for me. I want you to create an app for me. And they're coming in with some preconceived notion as to what that app or that digital entity and asset can do for them, right? But it's only when you actually go deeper into it, when you implement certain things, when you start seeing the response that digital entity is getting, is when you realize, okay, I was way off the mark. Yeah. So, and that happens a lot with many clients. They begin with, of course, especially in today's day and time with COVID and everything, people have been sort of pushed into digital transformation, but they have certain preconceived notions of what digital transformation or digital media or social media can do for their business. And they think it's like a silver bullet, which, we just need to keep posting, one post every day, and, we will be an Instagram business in say a few months. So wrong, so misguided. So things like these, digital transformation is it's a whole new game altogether. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of data to be processed and understood, feedback to be received and understood, for you to make the right changes. And of course, it's an ever changing world, right? Instagram, Facebook, these companies keep changing their algorithms, the way they look at your particular content, the way they show that content to other people, the way they disseminate it. They keep changing these algorithms, so you need to be you need to keep up with these changes. So, which is what I say is the madness, and that's where you require these different methods and methodologies. To understand what you need to do, and all of that, in my opinion, begins with the why. The why needs to be very clear, because how you arrive at the final solution and how you solve the problem in the end. There could be various ways that you do that, but understanding the motivation and the desire behind doing something is very important.
Yeah, if you don't understand the why, you'll never know if you're actually being successful. When I'm doing any sort of workshops, that's like one of the main messages I always like to drive in.
True.
It's the fact that you basically need to know why you are there. Otherwise, you'll never know if you did what you were expected to do and to achieve, right?
Right. Absolutely. The goals, the why needs to be very clear.
Yeah, super, super clear. So that is absolutely fantastic. I also have to say that I agree with what you are sort of putting forward in that sense. And that's sort of the beginning. Making sure that why is very, very clear in there is very important. So that's Ambikesh methodology, the why, game thinking, and mixing it up with all of these very interesting and useful methods that some of them he comes up with them, other of them he's mixing them up to get the best out of them, and all of those things are absolutely fantastic.
Just a quick break before we continue. Are you enjoying this podcast? If you're listening through a podcasting app, please subscribe and rate us on the app. This will be of great help to reach more engagers so we can change the world together through gamification.
Now, Ambikesh, what would you say is there, again, not like a silver bullet, but is there something that you would say is sort of a best practice, something that you would say, if you do this, I mean, it's not the silver bullet, it's not the thing that is going to fix all your business, but it is probably going to help out a lot in your future results. Is there a thing that you can name in that sense?
Rob, again, no one thing in particular. In fact, that's been my passion in the last few years, is sort of collecting these different templates and methodologies that people use in different spaces, right? For different problems, there are different methodologies and different templates that you can use. And one thing I want to emphasize is, yes, do go for, sort of educate yourself about the space you're in and what you want to do. Even if, you're going to hire an agency to do it in the end, that's fine. But at least educate yourself to the point where you know what you need, and how you're going to get there. And using, again, as part of the education, also understand what are the processes, what are the templates that you can follow, because there's no pride in making the same mistakes that other people have made in the past and repeating them. You might as well learn from those mistakes and look at a tried and tested formula, and that goes for even something new that you're creating, something that has never been there before. Even then, there are processes like the Lean UX Canvas, the MVP Canvas from Game Thinking, all of these different templates that one should educate themselves with and arm themselves with before they, sort of just start jumping into things and just, start dabbling and experimenting. And of course, I encourage experimenting very, very much, because that's the way you find new solutions and better ways of doing things. But yeah, do look at some kind of educating yourself with some kind of process and methodologies.
Absolutely. So I would say that the best practice is exactly that. I would say the best practice, drawing out of what you just said, is looking for things that other people have done before in the past and see maybe if there is an application to what you are doing right now. And that makes a lot of sense. Why not learn from the past success or failure of others before committing those successes or mistakes by yourself. Absolutely, Ambikesh. And we're continuing into that recommendation territories. And we would like to know if there's, as you know, there was Jackson before you know him. He actually even mentioned you. Is there anybody that you would say, I would like to listen to the perspective of this person or that person in Professor Game answering all of these questions?
Absolutely. There's my good friend, Mohsen Mammon. Mohsen is a wonderful creator, very creative guy, and he has created wonderful games in the learning space. And, he works with a lot of people in the learning space, training and learning space, and gives them and arms them with games which help people achieve and organizations achieve certain learning objectives. So I would love for you to have him as a guest on this podcast. I'm sure he'll add a lot of value, and it'll be a fun experience listening to him and his experience in this space. He's been around for some time now, and he has created wonderful solutions.
That sounds great. And continuing in that recommendation, is there a book that you would say, oh, you should have that book and read this book for your experience, for your designs? Is there something that you would recommend the engagers?
Sure. I mean, of course, Amy Jo Kim's Game Thinking, that's like my go-to book. I have everybody who's joining my team read that book because, I myself am very engrossed and entrenched in that methodology. So yes. And at the same time, the Lean UX book by Eric Ries, I think that's also another good one, which I love. I recommend to everybody who's trying to create and develop a product or a solution. As I said, educate yourself with these wonderful experts who've been in the space for a long time, and learn from their experience, their enriching experience that they've condensed into these books. So these two would be my recommendations.
You mentioned from Eric Ries is the Lean Startup, right?
Lean Startup, yeah. Sorry, Lean Startup.
Yeah, no, I heard Lean UX, and I thought, maybe he had another book. I knew the Lean Startup, which is very well known.
Right.
I would say even Amy's book has a lot of inspiration, and there's a lot of things of mixing up with. I would even argue, and I've said this before, that it's kind of a natural evolution as well from Lean Startup and that methodology. There's things that are already incorporated into game thinking, and there's new things that as well are very, very useful. Absolutely, both are great books. And what would you say, Ambikesh? Getting outside of recommendations of other people. In your case, what would you say is your superpower, that sweet spot, that thing that you do at least better than most other people?
Oh, okay. You want me to brag about myself? Sure, I can do that.
Why
not? No, really, Rob. As I said, learning it's become a habit with me. So learning about how new businesses work is something which I think I've grown into, something which I've become much better at. And of course, with each new conversation that you have, you learn so much about, what people are doing and how things are working and how the world is ticking around you. Just to give you an example, recently I'm working with one of the biggest newspaper publications in the country, and trying to develop their digital strategy and their digital assets. And it's a wonderful experience learning all the tools and all the applications and technology that is available for people in the digital publication space. And that's something which, I've figured out and I dare say mastered in terms of, what needs to be done to create such digital entities. And I've been able to do that in the last span of about a few weeks. And that's the power of information that we have at our hand, So yeah, if I was to say one superpower, it's definitely figuring out how things work and getting them executed. That's something which I think I've developed in the last few years.
And absolute superpower as well. Definitely. Absolutely. So that makes a lot of sense, Ambikesh. And we come to the difficult question now. We would like to know, what is your favorite game?
My favorite game, my Xbox conked off a few months ago, but I'd sort of rediscovered the fun of playing games because I introduced my son, my 6-year-old son, to the Xbox. So that was like, revisiting my own childhood. And the other is at my wife's place, we have this old console, the Sega consoles with those, those cartridges that you shove in and all these,
Actual old ones. That's awesome.
Yeah, the Marios and the Contra and the, all of these
Goodness.
wonderful games from my childhood. They came, memories came flooding back when we started that thing up, and it still worked. We were so surprised. So yeah, those were my childhood favorites, man. Contra, Mario, Excite Bike. These were my lovely memories of the past. And then last few years, I think Xbox, when I got that, I loved playing cricket on it, which is, of course, our national pastime. So, cricket everywhere. So on the Xbox too. And, in addition to that, Call of Duty. I played a lot of Call of Duty. So I liked those action-based games.
Many games. Because when I'm going to put you in the spotlight for one last time, what would you say is your favorite? Again, maybe not all-time favorite, but your old favorite, your most recent favorite. I don't know. Put yourself in the spotlight. What would you say is you say, well, right now my favorite is this, for example?
Let me think about it. I think I guess cricket again, man, because I've been playing a lot of. I love that game, the sport in general. So any version of it brings me a lot of joy. So I would say cricket. I play a lot of. Okay, let me put it this way: the game on my mobile phone right now that I play a lot is stick cricket.
There you go. So it is that stick cricket game on your mobile, definitely, or you can say just cricket as a game in and of itself. Sports are also games. You have to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say, you go to consult someone, and they say, no, the problem is the CEO doesn't like this whole game thinking, gamification. And they say, the thing is, I hate games. Really? Yes or no? Let's even say no, and he has never played with kids. Do you like sports? And that's where their face is like, oh my goodness, you got to actually like a game. And like that. I would say it's one of the key opening doors as well into absolutely. So, Ambikesh, is there any final piece of advice you want to leave us with? Anything else you want to say before we take off? And please do let us know where we can find you on the world, of course, of the internet.
Sure. Our website is called madmethods.in. That's MADMETHODS.in for India. And, anybody can definitely reach out to me there. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Ambikesh Prasad. And, I love to connect with people, answer their questions, get any opportunity to, listen and, of course, talk. So I would love for people to connect with me and reach out to me.
Absolutely. There you go. You can find him on his LinkedIn. You can find him in all of these places. Thank you, Ambikesh. We are recording this on a weekend. The time difference between Spain and India is not an easy one, especially since I have so we had to find some spots on the weekend. So thank you for that as well, Ambikesh. Thank you for all the experience you gave us today. However, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Engagers, it is fantastic to have you around, and thank you for listening to this Professor Game podcast, and I hope you want more interviews with incredible guests like Ambikesh. All you have to do to help us out is go to professorgame.com/subscribe and get started on our email list. We will also be able to be in direct contact, and you'll be the first to know of any opportunities that Professor Game might have for you. And before you go on to your next mission, remember to subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.